in real life, okay? I want those kids to really have a sense that they know what the expectations are. Now, what that means, I want you to think about this. We can do a lot of fidelity measures, and we'll do that. I'll teach you how to do that. But let's cut straight to the quick. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to walk up to 10 different kids in school. 10 different kids. I want you to say, kid, tell me the behavioral expectations here. And if they're little tiny people, you're going to say, tell me the 3 Bs, tell me the 5 whatevers, but tell me the expectations. And if she says, bad, I want you to be able to tell me, be respectful, be responsible, be safe. I want you to tell me, do my best, be kind to others. I want you to tell me, be respectful of self, others, and environment. I want you to tell me the words that make you a member of this verbal community. All right? Then the second thing I want you to say is, you know, the words are okay, but tell me what it means right here. So what does it actually mean? What does it mean to be respectful in class? What does it mean to be responsible in the cafeteria? What does it mean to try your best? What does it actually mean? Because if the kids can't transform it into real behaviors, it's irrelevant. And we're going to come back. Part of what I'm doing is I'm setting up what I want you to be able to do as instructors also. All right? Third thing I want you to say is, has anybody acknowledged you for doing things right in the past 2 weeks? Has anybody acknowledged you, right? That doesn't mean they have to give you a Corvette, right? And it doesn't mean they have to, you know, have a assembly in your honor. But it does mean you got to be able to say what it is that you actually did. And I want you to avoid some of the error patterns that we've seen. I did this in Colorado, and there's one young lady she was the student of the month, and she was called up. She was the student of the month, and she was called up in front of everybody and given the Student of the Month award. And I went up afterwards and I said, wow, congratulations, this is great. And she was just beaming, because I don't know what she got, but she got something. And I said, what'd you do? And she said, I don't have a clue. All right, now come on. You do not reward people. You reward behavior. And if somebody is not able to identify the behavior that led to a consequence, it has no functional effect on the future probability of their responding. I want you to create environments that are not just predictable, they are excruciatingly predictable. That means the faculty know and the kids know. So if you're doing PBIS, right? Come on, you can do a bunch of measures, but you can just walk in, I want you to stop 10 kids. Cowboy, do you know what the expectations are? Do you know what it means right here? And has anybody acknowledged you in the past 2 weeks? 80% of the kids need to be able to answer those 3 questions. If they don't, we are not doing PBIS. Got it? All right. Second part, I want it to be consistent. Part of what we've got is I want the same expectations and the same structure to be consistent across people, place, and time. It is not okay to have one set of rules for the D Hall wing and other rules for every place else. Schools are a coherent environment. Come on, I got to tell you, when I was a teacher, my first job, the principal took me down to room 9, opened the door, showed me the kids, and said, this is your room, these are your kids. God bless you and good luck. That era is over. You can't teach in the 21st century. You cannot do differentiated instruction. You cannot do multi-tiered systems of academic support by yourself. Okay? And unless we get people engaged so that they recognize that children experience school as a whole school event, we're going to miss the boat. So what I want you to be thinking, this is, if we do it well, it's about the adults more than it is about the kids. The adults need to create an environment where it's consistent. Now, every teacher has their own feel for their room, and they need to have the ability to use their own, professional judgment. But within that, part of what you want to be able to say is, come on, this is not about creating a school that works for the adults. It's about creating a school that works for the kids. I want you to create a school that is highly predictable and highly consistent. Now, those of you who have been studying trauma-based interventions, come on, you can go back and look at all of those. That's the foundation for everything. And you don't do that by telling them. You do it by actually creating it. Predictable, consistent, positive. I want you to create an environment that the kids identify as positive. Not that we identify as positive, but that the kids do. We've done these surveys over and over and over. And the pattern that we get is adults on a 1 to 5 scale rate the school about a 4.5, 4.8. Kids rate the school about a 2.5, 2.8. All right? The gap between what they see and what we see is high. I want you to use their lens. I want you to create an environment in which the kids identify the school as a positive environment. Now, part of what we know is we know that if you're going to make that happen, a person's experience in the environment needs to have at least 4 times as many positives for every correction and negative. So it's not one of those things where it's a 1-to-1 or let me tell you the thing I did well. It's a comprehensive experience. And it's not just the experience that they have with adults, it's the experience they have with peers also. We do a lot of work with high schools and kids who drop out of high school. And we actually followed around some kids who are at high risk of dropping out. They were experiencing, on average, 27 punishers per day. 27 times per day they were told, you don't have your homework, you didn't do this, that's wrong, you are a miserable wretch. Okay? Not in those words. But how long can you keep going to school if you get punished, right? So in part, I want you to create an environment that's positive. I want you to create an environment where we basically build a system so that we are on a regular basis acknowledging the behaviors that we want. Now, this is really 2 different parts to this. One is kids have learned that as adults, we teach something, but we don't follow through. And if we don't follow through, why should they do it? You know, they just kiss it off. They will actively implement, not when you teach it, but when you actually build the contingencies to support it. So unless you build something that acknowledges it, we're going to come back. So I'm going to talk, one of the things I want you to really focus on, this whole notion of acknowledging and rewarding behavior. You will have people who are worried about that. They're worried that rewards will undermine the intrinsic motivation. Basically, the research around that is unequivocal. It is absolutely clear that in American education, the error that we make is under-acknowledging, not over-acknowledging. The environments, and I'm sure in San Francisco, everybody loves everybody, right? So it's nice. Okay, come on. All right. I used to walk through the streets of San Francisco when I was a graduate student. All right, but in everywhere else, we are not doing an adequate job of acknowledging. And what we do too often is peripheral acknowledgement without clarity about what are you doing that actually is valuable. All right, last piece is I want it to be safe. And safety is both physical and emotional safety. You actually are creating fairly safe environments. I mean, you got all these bars. I mean, you got all sorts of... The actual physical spaces are safer than many of the home environments that the kids go to. Emotionally, we failed, okay? And part of it really comes back to all of the issues related to bullying. Students, especially middle school and high school students, do not identify our schools as being emotionally safe places. And most of that is not because of what the adults do, it's because of what other kids are doing. You can change that. If you're implementing PBIS, Tier 1 PBIS now, from now on, as of for the last 5 years, incorporates bully prevention. So you don't do that as an add-on, you do that as part of the integrated structure. So this is the one slide. Everything else is going to come back to this. I mean, you're wondering, my God, how's he going to get through 94 slides if we spend, half an hour on the first one? The reason is, I want you to pull this together. I mean, this is, if you wanted to say, what is PBIS, right? The purpose of PBIS is to create a effective, an efficient, and equitable learning environment. That's the goal. And the way you do that is by achieving 4 things. Predictable, consistent, positive, safe. All right, now, quick wrap. One of the things that's happening in the United States right now, especially since 2008, when all the money went away, is people over and over are identifying, think about the school next door. What people will do is they'll draw a circle and they'll say, you know what? These are kids with whom we can be successful. Have you been there? These are the kids with whom we can be successful. But there are kids that we simply don't have the resources and the support to do. We've got some kids with autism spectrum. We've got kids who come from different cultures. We've got kids who have really significant learning problems. We've got kids who are aggressive and create challenges. We end up coming up with a whole lot of reasons why kids are outside the circle. One of the reasons I want you to be interested in PBIS makes the circle bigger. I want you to give people the tools. Not just putting kids in their schools. I want you to give them the tools to be successful with everybody. So this whole notion of equity, big deal. Now, you all are in a really difficult role vis-a-vis schools. Because you're going to go in and say, I am from the district and I'm here to help you do something new and more difficult. Right? All right. So here's some things I want you to think about. PBIS is about supporting the social behavior, and essentially, big message, you will not achieve the academic gains unless you build a coherent social structure. Got it? We actually have the data. If you do not create a coherent social foundation, a culture, you will not achieve the academic gains. You need them together. Second, too much of the stuff that we do in education is not evidence-based. One of our biggest mistakes is we spend a huge amount of time and resources doing things that we don't have good documentation that work. We like it, but we don't have documentation that it works. The other part is we focus too much on do you have the manual or do you have the program, not how do you get it in place. The process of implementing something is as important as the thing itself. You are, quite frankly, the implementers. You are the key. The policy of what you're going to happen is going to come from the district. Whether it gets in place is whether you have the talent to do the training, coaching, and ongoing adaptations and support. Now, when you talk to those schools, you talk to the teachers, they're going to be worried, right? Every time they see you walk in, oh my God, here he comes. He's going to have a new thing for us to do. All right, so here's the things. Here's what I want you to actually use this slide. All right, I want you to use this slide. I've talked to lots and lots and lots of schools, and you want to, basically go to high schools if you want to really, get into resistance. So here's what I want you to do. One, we as a school are going to adopt PBIS. We're going to adopt PBIS because it's going to make the school a more effective and equitable learning environment. Are you in favor of that? Yes. All right. But we're not going to adopt PBIS on the backs of the faculty. We're not going to adopt PBIS on the backs of the kids. We're not going to adopt PBIS on the backs of the families. When I was a teacher, I was the person who kept getting sent away to behavior and classroom management workshops, and every time I would come back with a 3-ring glossy binder, right? And my job was to inoculate the rest of the staff, right? And I was actually pretty good at doing that. But the thing that I want you to think about, that's a lousy way to do business. From now on, when we implement things, we only implement in teams. We only implement systemically. We only implement with a level of fidelity that will allow us to sustain high fidelity implementation for a minimum of a decade. All right, so here's part of what you do. I want you to talk to people and say, never start by saying we're going to start with PBIS. Don't say that's what we're about. I want you to start by saying, to what extent is everybody perfectly happy with the social behavior of kids? Not a lot of hands, okay? Not a lot of hands. Okay, so let's talk about the behaviors that create excitement and challenges, right? Then the second thing I want you to say is, to what extent do you think they will change if we don't do anything different? What do you think? So if we've got to do something different to make things happen, here are the rules that I think we got to use. 1, let's agree we will not stop doing things that already work. If it already works, we're going to keep doing it. Now already you've got a bunch of faculty who are thinking, oh, okay, because I think I know what works. Second is, I always want you to look at the smallest change that'll produce the biggest effect. So don't think about doing everything you can possibly do. I want you to look at the smallest change that's going to produce the biggest effect. And to the extent to which you as a coach can actually make that happen. And the other thing is, never in a school identify something new. Don't identify something new that you're going to implement unless you identify what you're going to stop doing to create the resources to make that happen. So as administrators, this is a big deal. We're not going to stop doing things that already work. All right, so now you feel better, right? We're going to look for the smallest change, not the biggest thing we can think of. And administratively, we don't have, in many of your schools, people who are raising their hand and saying, I don't have anything to do Tuesday, Thursday afternoon. Is there a meeting I could be part of? Right? You don't have a lot of that, right? Okay, so let's honor that. Come on. I want you to think about all the meetings that people go to, all the time that they've got. We do a lousy job with meetings. We use very talented people poorly. I want you to stop doing some of the stuff that you don't need. And I want you to be very, very clear in terms of the priorities. California, more than most states, does too many things poorly. Do smaller number of things well. And if we do that, then we've got to have a way of how we align and how we put things together. If you're going to talk about discipline systems, you should have one discipline system, and you should integrate all of the pieces into one organized structure. And that has to happen at the district level. Don't ask the people to do that at the school level. All right, other things. Basically, from now on, we'll never ask people to do things unless we give them the data upon which to do it. The delivery of the right information in the right form at the right time is the single most powerful thing you can do to enable competent people. In education, we typically have used data as almost a 4-letter word. We gather data and send it up the system into the ether space of administrivia, right? Only to get it coming back as a punisher. I want you to take back the data. Within PBIS, I want you to be thinking right now, schools that you know, can you tell me office discipline referrals per day per month? Can you tell me how it's allocated by location, by time of day, by student, by function? If you can't tell that information in a school with data that's less than 24 hours old, we are failing our people. We are asking them to do things without giving them the information. Second is, it's not just the data about the kids, it's the data about the fidelity. People need to measure fidelity, not once a year, but at least 3 times a year. People need to measure fidelity. Think about those high-intensity individualized plans. Never build an individualized Tier 3 plan that doesn't include a fidelity measure that is looked at least weekly. The issue is, transform those into metrics that can be done with excruciating efficiency. Because the other message I would give you, I want you to use data systems that require less than 1% of staff time to collect, summarize, and use. We in education have a wealth of information. We are collecting, for the most part, the wrong information, we're allocating it in the wrong way, and we are not using it for efficiency and effectiveness. So a critical theme within PBIS is we actually want to empower people by giving them the right information in the right form at the right time. All right, next part is I want you to be thinking about a distinction between programs and practices and core features. and I'm going to come back to this a little bit because it's a big deal. Too often in education, we get these 3-ring glossy binders, and it is the program for X, right? And bullying is a great example. You can get all sorts of manuals and programs. Essentially, here's what I want you to do from now on. I want you to be able to separate the core features that you would see in a school. If you walked into a school, what would you see? From the practices that you use to get there. So I want you to think about the distinction. So use the one that we know already. We talk a lot about behavioral expectations, right? So I want you to teach 3 to 5 positively stated behavioral expectations. That is a core feature. Now, how you do that can happen many different ways. You can use second step if you like that as a way of teaching. You can use safe and civil schools. You can build your own package. You can do many different approaches. Make it fit the community. I mean, come on. My older son lives in the Mission, and so the schools there are different. The community is different than in other parts of San Francisco. If you do PBIS well, it will feel like the community that it's in. An example, when I have done presentations on identifying positive expectations, one of the ones I did was in western New Mexico, in an area that was very rural and in one of the Native American communities. And I talked about the importance of building community around a sense of expectations and values. And this guy came up after the presentation and patted me on the back, and he said, you know, overdressed white guy, this is great. But you got to understand, we've actually been doing this for 450 years. And I said, that's great. So what are the and they weren't be respectful, responsible. They would be brave and be honorable. But what we did is we had the elders of the community come into the school and teach not only those core features, but the history of where it came from. The teachers, though, were the ones who said, what does being brave and honorable look like on the playground? What does it look like in the cafeteria? And by combining those, we actually built something that the families were really comfortable with, and it put together. The difference is, I want you to separate the core feature from the way you get there. Too often, what we do is we focus on the fluff, not on the function. The reason why you will be able to implement PBIS effectively in different places is because the path you use to get to the core features will be different. Build on what the school already does well. Make sure the school is attached to the community, not just the faculty. Look at the skills and the structures that they already can bring, because you're always looking for the smallest change that'll produce the biggest effect. The last thing is you got to have policy clarity. All right? So from you all, basically, we do not work with schools unless we have district support. You need to be really clear about what you need from the district. And with large urban districts, it's complicated. And everybody's going to look and say, oh my gosh, you can't believe the complexity of San Francisco. Basically, it's all true, and I have no sympathy. We do this in New York City. All right? We're doing PBIS in a 4,000 kid, 5-story building in inner city Manhattan. We do PBIS in Philadelphia. We do PBIS at Stockton Elementary in inner city Chicago. Right? There is no place where there are kids that we don't have the obligation to make this work. And the fact that you've got large systems is not an excuse. The other thing I want to tell you, basically, as far as we're concerned, wherever you are in a system, you have 3 obligations. Obligation 1 is to do your part brilliantly. Obligation 2 is to make everybody who reports to you more effective than they would otherwise be. And obligation 3 is to make it absolutely clear what you need from the people above you to do well.